he was like the representation of that. He was the representation of who you didn't want to be around. Hello, I am Kendall B. I'm going to be your host for today and every other day. So for this video, I'm going to be covering the 50 states and the different legends that are within them. Specifically for this video, I'm going to be doing Illinois, and this one's actually quite interesting. So if you're wanting to watch content like that or similar to that, please stick around for the rest of this video and for the rest of the content I'll be making in the future. So to start off with and jumping right into this, the name of the legend is Homey the Clown. If that name sounds familiar, it probably is, because there was actually, this legend was released in 1991. Right before this legend had started up in 1990, a show was released called In Living Color, and it was a fairly popular show at the time, and one of the main characters of that show was a man that dressed up as a clown, and they called him Homey the Clown. So that actually is where this all stemmed from, because the clown that was seen walking around in the suburbs of Illinois and Chicago, those were the main areas where he was spotted, he would dress up like this clown. And some people they have reports of him being African American. Some don't really say specifically what race he was. They just knew he dressed up like a clown and was very familiar to Homey the Clown. Now, this clown was seen wandering the streets or in his white van, and most often he was offering children candy. Those were pretty much his targets, were the children. He was offering them free candy. It kind of reminds you of those like weird, like, I don't know if you watched this growing up, but like in schools when they show you stuff and like, don't get in the car with a stranger, don't do that. Like, it kind of reminds you of that. He was like the representation of that. He was the representation of who you didn't want to be around. So this man, this clown, was over here offering kids free candy for the purpose of trying to lure them into his van to go with him, and he would pretty much snatch them up or hurt them in some way. So different people kind of believe different things. Some people believe he would just hurt them. Some people believe that he would take them as well. But either way, neither of those options are good if you ask me. So but it definitely brought a lot of fear into the communities, especially because he popped up a lot in the suburb areas, and that type of behavior, it just wasn't that common in those areas. So for it to pop up in an area like that, it was definitely a shock to everybody that was there. It was something that was very different, especially at this time. There was a lot of clown pop-ups, but it just wasn't as often. And so this is kind of like the first time some of these people have seen this, and then if you have, it was very negative because of other cases where clowns were involved. It typically ended up pretty bad, and there was a very, very large amount of eyewitnesses. It wasn't like only 3 people had seen it or something. Like, there was a lot of people who said they had seen this, a lot of people who said that they had witnessed this man walking around and trying to lure kids in. And so with this raising alarms in the communities, the police actually got involved, which is something that you rarely see. Like, in these legends, you don't really see police getting involved as much as the police did in this case. I'm shaking the camera. What am I doing? But yes, the police did get involved in this case, and they warned people to be very careful, because even though they didn't end up catching anybody, nobody ended up going to custody for this legend, it definitely was something that was seen enough and often enough to the point where it was concerning for the police, and the police felt the need to get involved. So they would warn kids and even the adults, watch over your kids, be careful with your kids, like, look after your kids, know where they're going, and for the kids, just like, watch out for this man. And that was kind of like really all they could do, because I mean, it's a sticky situation, okay? And at the end of the day, not all of the police were convinced. They actually ended up writing it off as just being another legend, even though they did get pretty involved when it came to this stuff, and it was a pretty big concern within those areas. They kind of were like, well, we're not catching anything, we're not seeing anything, we're not seeing a whole bunch of proof, so in return, it's a legend. And that's how it ended up on this list. But a lot of people to this day who have grown up in that area a lot and have been there for a long time and a long part of their life will sit here and say and vouch that there definitely was somebody out there. Because another thing that the police couldn't decipher and a lot of people didn't know is if it was another case. You know, they didn't know if it was a prank, they didn't know if there was an actual, I don't want to say the word, I don't want to get demonetized, but you know, another snatcher up there. So it definitely was something that kind of just is like an unsolved case that just got chopped up to being a legend. And that is the legend of Homey the Clown that concludes this episode here. But yeah, it's freaky. And considering the fact that there have been so many clown sightings and like people legitimately getting hurt by clowns, it's not actually too hard to believe that that was a thing. Like, if it was real, it wouldn't be too much of a shocker considering the new stuff we've seen recently when it comes to clowns, and even the stuff that would happen in the 1900s. That sounds so old. In the 1900s that had to do with creepy clowns and things that some of these people are doing. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do have a specific state that you would like me to look at and research and make a video about, please let me know. I will definitely get to it. And that concludes today. So see y'all later. Ouch. Oh my gosh. Ugh.